Hi there, this is a quick introduction to 360 Splat Pro, things to do when you first download it, and a quick sort of overview of the UI and workflow, and then I'll do a tutorial directly on the video. So when you download the software and you unzip it, you'll get this folder with 360 Splat Pro. Put that wherever you like, but don't move any of the subfolders or anything like that. In the folder, the only two files you really need to think about are the exe, which runs the software, and the debug.bat, which is very useful if you're trying to report bugs or problems. So if you run the debug.bat, this will launch a terminal and it'll give you a little bit of information and basically will log everything that it does. So if you're kind of interested to see what goes under the hood, then you can kind of look at that there. When the application launches, it will then start creating this text file, which is basically everything within that terminal. So if we open with Notepad, you'll see we've got the same thing basically written here. That's very useful for debugging purposes, and send me that file or put it onto the Discord if you're trying to report a bug or anything like that. Okay, so main sort of image is where we put our inputs, so our 360 video or stills images or anything like that. You can drag and drop onto the interface, and what I'll do is drag on a previously done project. You can drag the project file on like that and it will load it up. You can do open here and that'll also do it. These are for projects, so if you wanted to do a new project, you can just discard that one, then it resets everything. And then if you want to make sure you save, that kind of thing. Recent projects will list everything that you've opened and run stuff on, so it's quite useful to get back to things. If you like the settings and you wanted to share that with someone else, you can basically do an export preset and import preset. Everything has tooltips, and so if you hover the mouse over everything, you're not quite sure what a setting does, then these will tell you. I'll get one that works. So everything is sort of explainable within the app. Now, one sort of concept is the project folder and what it is. So basically you would start with your video that you've extracted from Insta360 Studio or something like that. If I just do new, then you would drag that on. In this little cog up here, we can determine what the default behavior is for this. And we've kind of, it's set at default, so you don't have to worry about it. What it does is it will keep the video at the root of the file and then create a project folder here. Now I prefer to work this way because you can rename the project name and have multiple ones there. So if you move or copy it, you're going to duplicate that data or you're going to lose track of where the original file was. So recommendations work there. We've also got our language changes here as well. So we can switch to that. So you just hit apply, and then it will basically restart the app to reload the languages up, and then everything will be in German or whatever your language is. If your language isn't supported and you really want it, feel free to give feedback on that, so it's not too much pain to add in a new one. And then it will always reset because certain windows weren't getting updated and stuff like that. We've also got a reset all settings to defaults. And we've also got a YouTube link to where all of these tutorials are as well, which you can just click on and it will launch a browser with it open, just to help you get to the help faster. And everything else basically works on a sort of left to right workflow. So as you step through these, you get different options. And the idea is you would drag the video on. Similar to the old app in that you could reduce the amount of frames you want to extract and then run that as a test. Other things on the GUI, if we just stay with that before we get into doing a particular project. The masking can be turned off just by reducing that all the way down, and you can set it to sort of mid-ground if you want to see what that is. The heat map along here is basically for sharp frames, and that filters on there. You can turn it off if you're not interested in seeing it. Also on the GUI is this little blue line, which is our cache. So once that fills up, that will load it into your RAM, the frames, and it's a proxy sized frame as well, so you're aware of that. So you can do fit or 100%, but it's not going to be the actual frame for speed. So you can basically double tap on there and it will open that frame up, and then you can set the resolution that you're seeing it at here. And you can also open the folder very easily. Most of the tabs do something similar to that, and that will launch the actual files. Now, the other thing that this shows you here is the sort of subfolder structure. Initially, I was going to have this customizable, but it just became way too painful and inconsistent because everyone could do something different in that. But basically, the subfolders that get created once you start doing an extraction. And that's very important to know, that your name should be set correctly before you extract. And this little lock icon comes on to basically lock the project name, because you could rename it, extract again, and it'll be in a different location. It gets all super messy. Other things we've got here is we can just step back and forth in the frames. Arrow keys would also do that, which I find very useful in terms of the UI. Down the bottom, we have a little display and the previous sort of command line. So if you're not running with this for when it's doing stuff, then you get a little bit of an indication of what's going on there, but not to sort of overwhelm the user with that information. So the same thing in that I can open my masks and then it will go to the project folder. So we have an analysis folder, and that's where we store the sharpness files and the sort of reports as well. These can be opened in a text editor, and they can also be generally opened from the UI as well. So you can do open report, and then that'll bring that up here. Colmap is basically where the Colmap projects are stored, and this is a sort of used by, I'm using Sphere SFM to do the equilateral alignments, and that stores its information here. So we actually copy the masks over, and that's used in alignment, and then we get the report and those kind of files there. Cubic is the result that you take into splatting, and external is where the external software and tools will output. And frames is our extracted frames. We get a subfolder based on the file name, so the file name is quite important to have right. But if you're doing multi-camera work, then you'll get each camera name listed here. So it's a way to basically not overwrite yourself if you somehow had the files in different folders or something like that. Masks is where our SAM3 masking is outputted, and you have a AI, which is the SAM3 masking. Then you can paint positive and negative masks in here. On this particular case, I haven't done any, but for instance, if I went in and I just wanted to touch up this or something with a paint mask, this should then write a frame in there, hopefully in the next second. Yeah, you see there, once I move the time slider, it does that. And then that's just a black and white image in there. And then they get combined and they go into this folder, and generally that's what goes through into the Gaussian splat. And then source is there if we were moving or copying our video file in there. We've also got a little VRAM and graphics card indicator down at the bottom here. And this just gives you an idea of how much VRAM might be getting used, because often I'll leave stuff splatting and then I'll go, oh, let's just start working on this, and that can tip you over the edge and crash things. So I just wanted an indicator for that. There is a horizontal offset in the GUI here as well. Generally, this offset is now applied sort of downstream, so once you apply it, it goes through and outputs everything. It can invalidate things, so generally you would extract, apply it, and then move on with the rest of the workflow. I kept that in there. Generally now though, SAM3 masking is so much better. You don't need to have this offset needed. It was generally where we had a split here, and I'm already sort of doing that. So you can reset that with this little button there. So I tend not to use the offset button too much now, but it's there if you need it. Okay, I shall see you on the next video.